Hey everyone, welcome to week 4, day 3 of our random cell phone pick week. That's a mouthful. So first day we painted a portrait of Manu with her blue kind of hood on and with no neck. I don't know how to describe it. And then yesterday, for Spanish Tuesday, Martes Español, we painted Dani in the sun with like big hair, big Jeff Jones hair, kind of like Mark Tennant lost edges. I really had a blast doing that one. That one is kind of like how I usually paint. I don't know what I'm doing. My drawing is off. Then I block something in. Then I put like drawing marks. I had to do everything to make that painting work. I paint something, I scrape it down. But I thought that was a very cool painting yesterday. So today, following the randomness, we'll see what Dani picks for us. So remember, the whole point of this week is that we don't really know what we're going to paint. And we have to push ourselves to find value in something that we may have not considered paintable, or it was just a picture that you had there that was just for archive purposes, maybe. So just again, don't always just see the value in things and you kind of jump the gun and you already visualize the painting that you want to paint, because a lot of times we painters do that. Like, we're looking around for stuff that already looks like a painting, so we anticipate ourselves and we already take that big jump and say, okay, that's a painting. Let's try to do paintings that we didn't really understand or comprehend or visualize as paintings initially. That's the whole point of this week. Okay, so let's see what we paint today. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye. Okay, let's do this. Remember, Dani is doing this blind. She's, with her eyes closed, and she's just swiping, and we got Fer just at my mother's house, looking at the Christmas tree. So the first thing I knew was that a lot of the painting had to be placement. I didn't want it to be, right smack in the middle. I really, really liked the archway. And I thought that, that triangle, which is basically that Christmas tree, I could push off to the side. And I think that it would actually speak more about, those shapes, the arch and the cut off triangle. I could move to the side and it would speak, a lot more about the relationship between Fer and, the space that was surrounding her, much rather than just putting her in the middle that would only, speak about her. It wouldn't like exclusively speak about her, but the attention would be, almost entirely on her. Especially just with the pose. I think a pose like that is inviting you to yes, travel through the space, but she becomes the protagonist. But by pushing her to the side and by having such a big geometric shape also behind her, I realized, okay, this is actually going to be, I'm going to be playing off a ton of shapes and a ton of like geometric shapes. So that arch in the background is, it's a very important shape. It's cut off also, but the triangle will also be a center of interest. I decided to go with my lining brush, my rigger brush. I really, really like to draw with that brush. I think it may be a bit premature to use it, especially if you're just blocking in your drawing. You do have to use a bunch of medium because it's a brush that has long hair. But for it to be able to deposit paint on the surface, paint has to be really thinned down. So I use liquid just so to guarantee that my paintings are going to dry fairly quick, so I can actually, if they sell, I can ship them fairly quickly. If not, people would have to wait like a couple of weeks for the paintings to get to them. But doing such specific line work can be tricky. Mainly because you are committing yourself very, very, very quickly to what you want, to your placement and what you want your shapes to be and composition. So honestly, I think it's a lot easier to take a bigger flat brush and try to do bigger shapes and go for those bigger shapes. I, but the thing was, I really, really liked Ferret's pose, and I wanted to see if I could get the her gesture. It was a very, very subtle gesture, and I wanted to see if I could do it somewhat carefully. And if I stuck my drawing, if I would stick to my drawing, then my painting would flow a little bit easier, because it is more of a not complicated painting in the sense that there's a lot going on, because I do have like specific hierarchies. I'm not painting everything in the same manner. But I didn't want to fight with my drawing so much. So again, it's not super easy because you really have to commit. And if you're off, fixing a drawing that is, these little fine lines is a lot harder to just fix something that is a broader, longer shape. That's why if I would have to recommend something for everyone, is to actually go for the bigger brush. Always go for the bigger brush. My challenge with these paintings is that after a couple of hours I have to end up with an image, with something that feels like a concise, solid image. Like I actually was able to depict what my thought process was during those 4 hours, and I want to close that the act of painting, and hopefully have in the end an image that can speak about the reflection that I had going on for 4 hours. So it's not easy when you have a complex drawing. I think like this one a little bit. It's not easy if you just do a couple lines and just block something roughly in, and you have to kind of quickly find your way through those lines, only to get to very, very specific, very subtle little, for example, this pose has just a very, very subtle gesture. So I didn't want to, I don't know, speculate so much, I guess. So I relied upon my drawing. I was like, okay, I'm going to be really concentrated in this, these first couple of minutes of the painting, and I'm going to try to hit my drawing. I'm going to try to hit the placement and her proportions, because I can't be off. Like if her head was too big, or the legs were too long, it wouldn't have worked. That's why you probably saw me just moving fairly quickly when I was doing the drawing, just so that I can have like a bigger sense of how not only her pose works, but how her pose, her shape is actually playing off of the rest of the shapes. And that was super, super important for me. Now, as soon as I had this, as soon as I had my big main shapes, that archway in the back with the dark background, then leading to this bigger green triangle. I'm going to cut it off like in a little bit on the right side, but it is a triangle, which was the Christmas tree. And then what is basically like a softer pyramid shape. If you think about Fer that way, she's also a pyramid, but she's echoing the shape of the tree, but in a softer way. So you have almost like an inscribed pyramid in front of a bigger pyramid, in front of an archway that has a very dark background. As soon as I saw those big relationships, those big shapes, I was like, okay, now I can get a sense of what I'm painting. Now I have like an actual sense of what my painting is going to look like. Because remember, I don't know what I'm going to paint until Dani like picks it randomly. Because you have to trust me on this. Like, she is picking everything randomly. Like, her eyes are closed. She's just swiping through the phone, and wherever she lands, we do. And yes, you could argue, wow, that's a nice pose, and I know. But in my mind, everything is paintable. Everything. You could just, if you want, maybe I'll do this. For 1 week. I'll just tell you guys, send me your most boring picture, and I'll try to make a painting out of it. And I can pick some pictures that you guys send, and I'll see if I can do some pretty cool paintings. But I actually do believe that is the mark. I mean, I don't consider myself a great painter, but I think the mark of a great painter is to be able to do a ton with nothing, with absolute nothing. So this is, this is the essence of the challenge of this week, is exactly that. Just thinking that, oh, there's no way that this can be a painting, and then suddenly just saying, okay, I'm going to actually make an image out of this painting, and an interesting image of that. And it's not really just about painting the photograph, which is, I don't know, that's the simplest way to understand having a photographic reference. It's just translating a photo into paint. That to me is a very sad misuse of painting, to be completely honest. Or it's the lowest denomination of painting, because not because painting from a photograph is bad. I'm essentially doing exactly that. It's just that you're missing everything. If your goal is to echo the photograph, and to have people believe like your painting is very close to the photograph, so much so that people only say like, "Oh my God, that looks like a photo." Then it's very sad. Then painting is not really doing anything. Painting is almost like in the service of photography. So I don't. I have to believe that it works as a painting. Like, it has to have a specific life as a painting. It has to have painterly qualities that are, when exhibited, they give the observer a reason for it being a painting. When you're looking at a painting, you always say, yeah, that had to be painted. The only way this image could have lived is by being a painting. I really, really like that. I think that's a very tough thing to process, and it's a very tough thing to try and verbalize. But I really do think that the best of paintings, they justify themselves as paintings. So I always try to find what is it that I can do to this image that makes it live as a painting, makes it become a painting. And a lot of it is this atmosphere that is very abstract at the moment. It's just like floating value and floating color, but essentially it's gonna have a sense of place, and it's gonna put her in a very specific place, and hopefully give the painting a very specific mood. Because that's one of the things that I thought immediately. I was like, this is kind of weird. This is a little strange. And one of the first things I knew was that as soon as I saw the tree with all those lights, and they were the lights were on, they were just like flashing lights, all that saturation, all those hues, I was like, there's no way I'm painting that tree. I don't want to paint that tree. I want to paint Fed, and I want to paint the space. I really like the space. I love those shapes, but no way I'm painting the tree. Like, that's insane. All the decorations and lights, that would have been crazy. That's like a whole other painting. I'm sure there's another painter that would have seen that and said, oh wow, I'm going to go for that tree. And that's awesome. That's their painting. But my painting, and this is, I want to make this very clear. This is what makes us different. We could all have the same, beginning. We could all start from the same image, or start looking at the same thing in nature. But, and that's our starting place. Those are the starting blocks. Like, that's where we all are going to be placed. And as soon as we say go, and just, we get to paint, we have to start making very, very specific decisions. And, maybe another painter would have loved the dark atmosphere, on the left, and it, would have actually wanted to talk more about that atmosphere. Maybe someone would have loved that tree, and maybe someone would have loved Fed's pose and would have concentrated solely on her. I wanted to have those three, but I wanted to have a hierarchy. I wanted her to be the interlocutor, like, she is presenting the space. But I also wanted it to have like a Hopper-esque quality, because Hopper is, sometimes I think, yeah, Hopper is one of the best, artists in the 20th century. I think Hopper is one of the best painters, period. Like, stop. I think he achieves something that is, it's very seldom to see in any other painter before or since, which is a sense of belonging. So every single figure that he depicts in a in an interior, usually it feels like they do belong in that space. But there's also like a complete detachment of that figure with the space, and I love that. I don't know how he achieves it. I don't know where that lies in, where that resides, that feeling, but he's able to do exactly that. It's like, oh yes, that you know uh, um, that woman that works in the New York movie theater. Yeah, she works there, but she doesn't want to be there. How do you say that? Like how do you express that? And for example, that composition in that painting is just insanely brilliant. Just there are beautiful compositions in art history. I think that's one of them. So that gave me, I immediately thought of Hopper. I think about him like a ton when I paint because he really is one of my favorite painters. And I thought, well, she's right in front of there, but at some level, it's like she doesn't want to be, like she's there, but she doesn't want to be there, but she's comfortable there. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. And I realized, okay, I can try to go for that feeling. The placement, I think, helped a ton. Just by pushing her off to the right and having that bigger, greener shape in the back, it actually did help a lot. And I realized I had a bottom left area that I needed to solve, but I knew that I didn't want a ton of attention down there. I was like, no, I can't have the same weight on the right side of the painting as the left side of the painting. I don't want this to be kind of balanced. I want it to sort of dilute. And the coolest thing about doing a painting in a couple of hours is that you can speak about all the stages of a painting. You can have your block-in show through. You can have your underdrawing show through, or an initial wash that you're doing. You have access to all those things when you're working in an alla prima painting. So I thought, okay, I can just kind of have these little presents. They were presents, but I wasn't really too keen in describing them as presents, these boxes. So I was like, no, I'd much rather just speak of them as, yes, there's bags there and there's a couple of boxes there, but I'm not going to describe them as highly saturated boxes or bags. So I picked like the craft color ones and maybe a white paper bag in the back. And that was it. I was like, okay, these are going to be cool. And then there's going to be a few more accents of color, but just void of saturation and just hint. I was just thinking about hinting information. Because if I described it too much, then it would have just been, oh yeah, it's a Christmas painting. But I didn't want it to be a Christmas painting. I wanted the origin of the image is any photo that any grandmother would take of her granddaughter in front of a tree, then that's totally fine. And it's reminiscent of, I don't know, holidays or whatever. But I wanted it to be, again, I wanted it to be a painting. I wanted it to be about something else. And something bigger than just her standing in front of a tree. And it feels, I like that it feels more desolate than what the image actually initially was hinting at when I saw it first. And in here, I was like, okay, that green needs something. So I just put like two little notes of like a cad red, a little grayed out cad red on the shadow side. And I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. And I thought, okay, I could actually maybe later on put some cad red of the same value. This was super, super important. I had to keep the same value of that green because I don't want it to pop. I don't want it to be super important. I want it to remain like the bigger greenness of the tree. I want it to remain. I didn't want it, that red to really play off and to show through. So I knew that I had to lower the saturation of that red and keep it in the same values as that green, so it's there, but it kind of disappears. It's it's making an effort to paint something that's important that is invisible, and I was like, okay, I can do that a little bit later. And that blue, I loved that. Her skirt, it has like a little veil, and it's somewhat transparent. But, in an alla prima painting, you have to think of transparency not as something that's complex, not as something that you can glaze, or that as something that requires layers. But again, just color against color, just very, very simple. simple, simple. And as I was advancing, I was like, yeah, this is like a weird kind of eerie painting. This is, I'm loving this mood. And when I started with Hopper, I was reminded of two artists, especially. And I hope you guys like that my brain always goes to like artists as references, but that's the way I contextualize my work. That's impossible. I love painting. I love images. My mind is like this enormous visual library. So I always go to paintings that are reminiscent of what I'm trying to do. And one of them is Pere Llovera, which is a Catalan painter, painter from Barcelona. I think he is an incredible artist, absolutely incredible artist. And he works with archive photographs, but it's always like something more than that. It's like the basis of his images is very, very mundane, very simple. But there's always something off. There's always something that offset it. It may be like an element that is foreign to the painting or to the original image that suddenly creeps in. So it has that almost like collage quality to it. It's like a painted collage. But many times it could just be that image, but it's just the way, like his proportions that are slightly off, his drawing is slightly skewed, or the way he presents the space is slightly larger than what it should be. It's always something. It's just such a strange, almost indescribable quality to his paintings that I absolutely adore. And the other painter, which is far more, I think Pere is actually a lot more organic. But I think the other painter is Eric Fischl, which is more of a, you set a scene. And I know that he works with actors many times, and I know that he almost like puts the starting conditions, and then the actors can do, whatever they want, and he just either records them or takes photographs, and then he does, basically what I was describing with Perez's work, which is do some sort of collage work also, and the value of his paintings many times is just in the superposition of things that clearly don't belong together, or just have a very strange relationship when you put them, one against the other. But again, all of my thought process took me to paintings that feel kind of off, that gives you it's like, oh, that's pretty, but that's kind of weird. And that's Hopper to me. That was essentially Hopper. Everything is beautiful, and then suddenly you see that this house opens the door, and it opens to like this huge field of grass. It's like, whoa, what? It's very, very unsettling. So that's kind of what I went for. And a couple of hours of painting. I think it was 4 hours of painting this, but it was super exciting. And again, that's the challenge of this week. It's very, very cool when you don't really know what you have to paint, and you're just looking at something, and then while you're painting, you're trying to figure it out, and your mind is going a million miles an hour saying, okay, how can I make a painting out of this? But not just how can I paint this beautifully, or how can I paint this nicely, or how can my painting speak about my ability to paint or draw? And that's irrelevant. No, it's actually, how can I make an image out of this? How can I make a cool, painting? I don't care if it's 4 hours. A lot of people go like, well, that's kind of like a sketch, or that's 4 hours. Nah, it's a painting. It's a painting. Don't downplay it. I've seen paintings that take half an hour that are absolutely brilliant, and I've seen people labor over 6 months on something that's a piece of crap. So, nah, a good painting is a good painting. It doesn't matter how long it takes. So, it's not an excuse, and I'm saying this in the sense that I can't have the excuse of not having enough time to produce a nice painting. I have to be able to produce like a cogent image in the time that I have, and it has to be a solid painting. So that's what I was going for, and hopefully it shines through. By the way, I had a blast painting her hair. I loved it, and I love how the contour of her hair just follows the contour, the shape, the bigger shape of her shoulders, like the gesture of her arms going up to her shoulders, and they just go straight to her head, the top of the head. I really loved that. So I was super happy with the way this painting ended up. So that's it for today, and tomorrow we'll have another, big challenge ahead of us. I don't know what we're gonna paint. I have no clue. Again, I'll know. I'll know what I have to paint as soon as I see the photo, and that's I don't know. It's pretty exciting. It's 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 scary but pretty exciting. Anyways, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.